all turned on? Everyone can hear me? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Wednesday, August 14th regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Item 1 on the agenda is the First Selectman's report. And in my report tonight, I'd like to first provide some follow-up regarding a question that came to us last meeting about the inclusion of meeting agenda items labeled old business and new business. I checked some information we all received at the most recent Freedom of Information training session by FOI's Tom Hennick. According to Freedom of Information, it is not advisable to have such agenda items listed for meetings of public agencies and boards, as this does not comply with FOI rules. In short, we must publish agenda items to clearly communicate in advance to the public what we plan to discuss. Only at regular meetings may we then opt to add additional items to the agenda, again clearly specified, and in these instances we can only do this by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members present. So we'll not be able to add old business and new business to our agenda, but I thank Dr. Lober for his suggestion. And this is now a perfect opportunity to let everyone know that we will again be hosting Tom Hennick for another Freedom of Information workshop on September 25th at 6:30 here at Town Hall Main Meeting Room. All new and continuing board and commission members are invited, and I also urge all members of the public who have an interest in learning more about open meeting laws and best practices to also attend. On another note, later in the agenda, we'll be accepting resignations from various people who have served the town admirably on our boards and commissions. As far as the Sustainability Committee membership vacancy is concerned, this is an ad hoc committee, so I will be appointing Ken Golden. His resume was in your packet. Also in your packet is a letter from the Land Trust thanking the Board of Selectmen for our vote to support the town's efforts to fundraise for the preservation for farming of the property known as the Baldwin Hayfield. As you can see, they were successful in their efforts, and I'm pleased that the 11 acres of the parcel located in the town of Woodbridge will be protected. Great work by all. An update regarding the Beecher lockdown incident review. As I indicated last month, I'm reviewing a final agreement with consultant Eric Tordahl and his company IRS Solutions, who will conduct a thorough review of safety and security infrastructure and procedures. I will look to share more information with the board as Eric conducts his work. In addition, I took part in the following meetings and activities since our last meeting. On July 15th, I attended a meeting of the emergency response team, including fire, police, human services, and public communications personnel, to go through our emergency operations plan document. This was the first of 2 meetings planned to finalize updates to this important document. I thank everyone for their participation and the open discussion and collaboration we have had. On July 26th, along with Tony and Betsy, I visited Camp Hero at Beecher Road School. This was the very successful first year this camp for older children with special needs was offered by the rec department. I'd like to thank everyone for their outstanding efforts to make this idea become reality. It was really a heartwarming visit. On July 26th, Tony and I met with Bob Gilbert and Al Pulo to discuss personnel changes at Beecher Road School, in addition to other issues. This is a continuation of monthly meetings we have had since I began my first term in office, and I'm hopeful that we'll be adding the new board chairman as an active participant to join us for future monthly meetings, as we will try to accommodate his schedule. Bob was not able to attend tonight's meeting, as he literally just this morning returned from vacation, but we will see him again next month. On August 12th, I joined my First Selectman counterparts from Bethany and Orange, Paula Cofrancesco and Jim Zioli, to meet with Amity Superintendent Jennifer Byers. We discussed Amity's planning for a public information session on September 26th with a representative from the state's Department of Education, who will describe the process by which Amity might choose to expand and become a regional K-12 district. I encourage attendance at this meeting. It should be very informative. Anyone is invited if you'd like to attend. Dr. Byers also let us know about the possibility of Amity holding a referendum vote to authorize bonding of a new list of capital projects, including potentially an artificial turf field at the high school. This bonding plan has not yet been presented to the full Amity Board of Ed for their vote. That presentation is slated to take place on September 9th. A few additional points of information. Regarding Brian St. Pierre and Insight Development's proposed project to build over 55 housing on a portion of the former country club property, we have received word from Brian that he is in the process of securing new financial backing. I am awaiting details and expect to bring new information to the Selectmen as soon as possible for a review and determination of how best to proceed for the town of Woodbridge. I expect that a vote for approval, again, will be necessary. I will share more information as it is received. In addition, as I mentioned previously, I've asked a small staff committee to consider ideas for the remaining 95 acres or so of the former country club property. This group has met several times to brainstorm and discuss potential options for the use of this land as a public park. Later in the agenda, Sheila's report, we will receive some preliminary information from that effort and a draft of a map showing where various options might be located. And that's my report. And I believe item number 2, Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association. Chief has something else to do, so we put him on the agenda early. So just come on up to the mic, make sure it's on, and introduce yourself and give us an update on use of the Fitzgerald field for the Halloween community gathering and the fireworks.
Okay, Fire Chief Rowland. We'd like to do the fireworks again this year at the Fitzgerald property, light them off on the Fitzgerald for trick or treat. We've been doing it since 2012, since Superstorm Sandy, and we've been doing the fireworks, I believe, the last 4 years. So we'd like to continue that and go out and fundraise and have a good, safe event again this year. We have when we hire the firework guy, we'll have a rider on the insurance where they cover us for any issues with it. So I know that was a question in the past. So I don't know if you have any questions about it.
So pretty much just the
Same
It's
thing,
the-
same
yeah,
thing,
it's the
different
exact
date.
same, nothing, same
Yep.
place, same time.
October 31st, right? You're doing it
Yep.
right on
Yep,
Halloween.
right on Halloween.
Right, okay. I believe we need to take action, so I will make a motion that we approve the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association use of the Fitzgerald Field Town property for Halloween community gathering and fireworks. Is there a second? Any questions or discussion?
Just that Jerry should approve that insurance.
Jerry Weiner?
Weiner.
Yep, okay.
Well, Jerry
I'll-
Shaw could do it too,
There's a lot of Jerrys in my life, I gotta tell you. I think I have
but Jerry
4.
Weiner.
Okay.
Could I ask for one point of clarification? So it's just the fireworks that are on the Fitzgerald property?
Correct.
All the kids and
All the
everything else
kids are
is
anything
at
are on the
firehouse?
firehouse, in the back of the
Okay,
firehouse.
great.
Yep,
Okay,
no one
Thank
else
you.
is on it.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yes.
With an amendment that Jerry Weiner will approve the contract. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
I have
Chief.
one other thing if I can.
Okay, it's not on the agenda.
That's
Is
okay.
it something I need to add to the agenda for?
I just
Okay.
wanna,
I just made it very clear, we can't do,
I just wanna thank the, board for.
oh, this you can do.
What's that?
You can always thank us.
Okay, so I just wanna thank you guys from the fire department. The radio system got turned on about 6 weeks ago for the, simulcast system, which we've had before, but we added a few more sites and the system actually ended up being really, really good.
Good.
We have almost 100% of coverage
Well, that was
throughout
the
the town.
plan.
Yeah, so we had
Glad it
100,
worked out.
the report hasn't come back, but I was part of the radio testing and I can tell you that we're just about 100% of coverage throughout the town with the analog, and the digital just blows everything away.
Fantastic.
So I know the committee is gonna meet again, and we haven't changed over to digital, I know that's the plan to do. But when it goes to digital, I just wanna let you guys know that the difference between analog and digital is night and day. And the clarity and the sound, and just to be able to communicate and not have that worry about, is somebody hearing me, is somebody not, that feeling's going away, so. I just wanna thank you guys for approving that and supporting that the radio project, from the simulcast to move forward, so. On
Wonderful.
behalf of the fire department, thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, item 3, liaison reports. Joe?
Yeah.
I'm gonna start over here
Okay,
tonight.
good start.
Okay.
No, I didn't make any meetings.
Okay, thank you. Dwight?
Sure, I got one.
Okay, good.
I went to Human
Have at it.
Services, and I went to the Human Services Commission meeting on August 5th. Basically, the ramp was essentially complete on the exterior leading to the downstairs. There's some minor items to address. And then they're going out for quotes to paint the Woodbridge Center. I don't know if they've gotten any, that was it last week, and they were looking for paint. And once they get it painted, then they're gonna put all the carpeting in the lounge. So that's the follow. On the luncheon meals, they voted to continue to use the Jewish, senior services group, and they're gonna do it they voted to continue that for the next 6 months. Apparently, it's working out really good. The meals are really good, everybody's happy with them, service is good, so.
Great.
So they're gonna continue that for the next 6 months, and then they'll reevaluate. They're organizing a 7th grade event at the middle school on Thursday, August 22nd. They're gonna have fun for the kids in the back, and also they're gonna be receiving their laptops that afternoon, so. And that's a draw, because the kids want their laptops, so
Right.
a lot of them will be there, so. They are expecting to get a grant again to continue the after-school at Beecher Road. The program, it accommodated 32 to 34 kids this past year for a period of 4 weeks, so hopefully they can get a larger grant so they can continue it maybe a little bit longer. It worked out really good. There was a lot of discussion about marketing on how to reach the seniors in town. I was surprised that they said about a third of the residents of Woodbridge are seniors, which is a lot of people, so. They are forming a group. They discussed maybe using social media, flyers, so they can get the word out to the seniors what they have to offer through Human Services. And they were gonna stop by and see Town Hall to see whether or not could they use social media. Was there something that maybe they could set up a Facebook page or whatever it is, so. But I think, it was interesting, but they wanna reach out to a lot of people. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Mica?
I did have one meeting with the Board of Recreation the past month. There were elections held at the Board of Education meeting. Andrea Weinstein was voted as chair of the Recreation Commission, with Smith Mowry voted as vice chair. During his report, Smith Mowry indicated that on October 19th, there's a townwide event called Fallapalooza. There's that one day where they'll be doing a number of different events, one of which will be a 2-mile hike for the kids, and it'll be sponsored by the rec department, and they'll be handing out flyers and letting the kids at Beach Road School know about that. And the flyer will also indicate that there's other events going at the same time on that day. And it's really a month-long type of thing, is my understanding. The pool is, they're considering and looking at the potential of adding private lessons for Saturday mornings for the pool, as well as looking at adult water aerobics. So they're evaluating that to see exactly what the interest is, what the costs are, and but their plan is to make it do it in such a way, particularly private lessons, where the commission, the rec department will actually stay in the black. They'll make more from those lessons than they need to spend to put them on. The road race is scheduled for October 5th, the annual road race, and the planning on that is going on. The summer concerts were found to be another great success again this year. They're planning for next year. That's already started, and the budget they'll be reviewing in October in terms of what the budgets are, so we'll know the numbers probably after the October meeting. During the director's report, they also mentioned Camp Hero and what a great success that was, as you mentioned, Beth. Next year, they're actually looking to plan for a 2-week period for that camp because it was such a success. And they're finalizing the numbers as far as what the budgets were and what the costs were to present in the next meeting.
What are the ages in the Camp Hero?
I think they went, I'm not sure, I don't know exactly.
I think
but
it was
Varied,
junior
it varied.
high.
When I was
They
on rec,
varied, that's
it
what I was
did
gonna say.
vary. There was,
Yeah,
they
they were
were
young
from,
to.
Seven to
they were from
nine,
like 6 to
grade
7 to 10 to 12, somewhere in
Right.
that range.
Grades, yeah.
Okay.
They passed out pictures and it did look just like a wonderful
It
program.
was great. It's the
Um,
best. I was scooting around with, I hadn't gotten off my, I wasn't walking at the time, so
Yeah.
I was scooting, and we had a wonderful day, afternoon, it was very nice.
The commission is looking for some details as relates to the work on the tennis courts at Beecher Road School. So I did tell them I'd be reaching out to Adam at some time in the next week or so to find out exactly what the plan is and what the details are. They did begin some work, but then things have stopped, and they're not exactly sure what the scheduling is for that. So they'd like to see if there's, they'd like to hopefully make sure that things are done before the school year begins. Triathlon, we did a review of the triathlon. With 57 participants, they are absolutely, by popular demand, already planning for one next year in June. It did turn out to be a great success, and they did raise a number of, there was contributions made in the form of Legos. And they were able to make a significant contribution along those lines from a toy perspective. So,
That was in memory for Logan.
yes, thank you.
Justin, yeah.
And there was mention that as a result of being near and around and on the gazebo here at Town Hall, they asked that I also ask about having the parks look at the gazebo itself, because there seems to be a number of spots where there's rotting wood, and there was some concern about that brought in. So, again, I'll see
They
about bringing it
told
up.
anybody you're the ambassador for that?
Correct, so I'll
Okay.
be bringing it up.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's it for the report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe?
Thank you. I attended the Board of Fire Commissioners meeting on July 15th. In a brief summary of the meeting, the financial statements were reviewed, and they're on target with their budget. In regards to the fire chief's report, there was some concern for tires of 4 or 5 of the apparatus, but upon further investigation, they determined that there was no issue, and things were corrected. There was a radio system upgrade, there's new consoles, and they're in use at the present time. There were 2 graduates from their junior training program. There was a fire marshal report, and there was a JCC violation, but it was considered very minor. In regards to the executive session, there was no action taken, and the next meeting is Monday, August 19th.
Thank you. Sandy?
Okay, the Library Commission does not meet in August, so I don't have a report for them. And the Woodbridge Board of Ed is having a retreat for their board members next Monday. But I do want to let people know about the changes in personnel that you mentioned in your report. So Principal Gina Crisco has resigned from her position, and basically Dr. Gilbert and the board approved moving Assistant Principal Annalisa Sherman to be the principal of the school during the 2019-20 school year, and that Beecher resource teacher Doreen Merrill will become the assistant principal for the coming year. They will put together a search committee and proceed with looking for the permanent replacements. So, with the Budget Review Task Force that Beth charged at the last meeting, and to remind you, the members are Mica and myself from the Board of Selectmen, and Matt Giglietti and Paul Kuriakos from the Board of Finance. And we have met twice, and actually Tony is on that group also. And we came up with a number of parameters that we're going to use to start to look at opportunities to look at consolidations, efficiencies, and the parameters are to try to right-size services provided by the town of Woodbridge, understanding staffing, looking at security coverage options, maybe for Beecher Road School and Amity. We want to eliminate duplication of services and programs. We do have certain departments who actually do run similar programs to others. To identify opportunities to consolidate functions across departments, including Beecher. Identify programs that are underutilized by town residents, but also to identify some revenue opportunities and working on initiatives related to the business district. We will be interviewing the department heads from the major departments in town: police, fire, library, human services, public works, Beecher, and recreation. And we are exploring creating some guidelines for our capital budget process. So hopefully we will be able to come forward with some recommendations that can actually be implemented for the 2021 budget. We have weekly meetings scheduled through the middle of October.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okey-doke. Item 4 on the agenda is Dr. Cosimo. Say your last name, please, when you come up. I'm not gonna spoil it. Thank you. He's an archaeologist. He was, at the Board of Selectmen meeting when I was on the board, requesting permission to do some excavation. You have a short report on, and it's also in our packet as to what you did, and now you're looking to do a little bit of something else. Is that correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Cosmo Scarlatta from Western Connecticut State University. The Board of Selectmen kindly gave my students and I permission to do research on town property in Woodbridge, and the research was highly successful. You know, these town property, the artifacts are town property. We discovered 3 important archaeological sites, 2 of them being fairly old. One of them, early archaic site dating between about 10,000 and 8,000 years ago, based upon, you know, point typology, a bifurcate point, which archaeologists like to use projectile point styles that go in and out of usage, you know, to date archaeological sites. And in this case, it was a very obvious bifurcate point that allows, you know, us to understand it's early archaic. And this was a campsite along with associated activities on a terrace overlooking the West River. We also excavated at a rock shelter, which was a large glacial erratic on the top of property adjacent to Park Lane. And there were several components, so there's several different occupations at the site. The oldest of which was a middle archaic component, which is between 8,000 and 6,000 years old, based upon a Neville point. But here I was also able to get a little money to do radiocarbon dating, so we are able to substantiate it's a 6,000-year-old site from 2 dates on calcined bone from the site. And again, we were able to show that the site was used as a campsite for hunting, and also logistically as a support site for hunting during the terminal archaic period. And the third site was a smaller site on basically the floodplain of the West River, where we recovered state-type bowl fragments, showing that people were bringing state-type bowls, which means they canoed to the site. It was a canoe portage, probably processing acorns and hunting. Basically, I submitted the reports from the excavation. I submitted 3 copies, a digital copy of, and I will submit reports to the State Historical Preservation Office in Connecticut, because that's our usual practice. The reports pretty much are to give information, because the idea here is preservation. You know, these are important resources. When we dig sites, we don't dig them in total. So that there should be enough information in the reports, I feel that, you know, so that at least one should go to the parks, and that, you know, that if there's going to be really significant impact of the landscape, that, you know, I think, you know, something should be done to try to help preserve the resources there. And that's really, you know, what the work is about preservation, but it's also about education. And I'm the president of the Archaeological Society of Connecticut, and so basically that's one of our missions. I'm going to donate my dissertation research, and I also, you know, along with the reports, the next Archaeological Society of Connecticut bulletin will include research I did at a really important late archaic pit house, which was a house structure, which, you know, was dated to 4,500 years ago. And it's been pretty important research, so that's going to be in the bulletin, and I'm going to also donate that to the library. So pretty much that my dissertation covered research on West Rock Ridge, which included Woodbridge sites. So that pretty much is documentation of all the sites that, you know, I've personally researched in Woodbridge. And with the artifacts, you know, the one request that I do make as an archaeologist, that the artifacts be kept together, because once you start to break up collections, it becomes impossible to go back and research. You know, if anybody else wants to research the collections, you know, it's not going to be very easy if you've got to go from place to place to try to find everything. But understanding that storage space, you know, is always a problem. I'm very glad that the town is actually taking the artifacts. And I also would, because my interest is also education, I'd be more than happy to come along with the artifacts. And if, you know, the high school students, or if some way, you know, we want to do a presentation and education about archaeology, you know, that definitely goes along with being able to keep the artifacts. I'd be glad to come along and explain, you know, what we did and what we do. So I think that covers the, pretty much a summary of the research that we did in 2016. What I'm here today about, to request is, so I want to do some small test excavations within the next, you know, week, 2 weeks. What prompts it is that a local resident who, the friend of Simon Donato's, who I guess is the town prehistorian, basically found what we believe is to be a fluted point, an ice age point. And this is not just me saying so, it's also was Brian Jones, who's the former state archaeologist because he recently passed away, and Ernie Wiegand from Norwalk Community College. So, you know, pretty sure it's an ice age point. Ice age sites are kind of strange. They're very old. The point is really just a sediment in the landscape for 12,000 years. So the fact that the point was located on the margins of the brook doesn't really mean there's an ice age site there. A lot of times, ice age sites are either isolated finds or secondary deposits. I believe that it would be to the best interest of the preservation of the resource if it's there to know if there's an ice age site there. All we want to really do is confirm that there is an ice age or there isn't an ice age site there, and I have no, you know, I can draw no conclusion as to which is either or, but having, you know, looked at the property, it should be pretty easy to test because the ridge comes down fairly steeply. There's only a few landforms there that actually, you know, would have sediments old enough to contain an ice age site. So I feel that with, you know, a limited amount of testing, we should be able to figure that out.
Okay. Just to get the discussion started, I'll make a motion that we approve your request to investigate the area off of Sanford Road as described in your letter. Is there a second? And then does anyone now have questions?
I just want to confirm that this is owned by the town.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not a residential property?
No,
Okay.
no, it's town
Great.
property.
That's a good
Okay.
point to confirm.
I believe it's called the
And do you have
Bethany Farm.
dates, ballpark dates, just,
Yeah, I start teaching on the 27th, and I'm not going to be free after
so
the
it'll be
27th.
between now and the 27th?
So, yeah, pretty much between now and the 27th.
Okay. 26th.
Yeah, to the 26th.
Right,
2 weeks.
okay.
Is it an area where there's currently trails or where there's
Yeah,
hikers?
there is a trail nearby. We
Right.
will, you know, no excavation on or, you know, very close to the trail.
Thank you.
You know, some of the test pits will, you know, come within a few meters of the trail. Test pits are filled in at the end of the day. We don't leave anything open. The only, kind of, precaution I do make is in case a huge thunderstorm comes and we have to, you know, gather things and run away, and we always bring stakes and caution tape and we cover it up and then go back. But these will be shovel test pits, yay big. They're always filled in at the end of the day, and we won't be there on weekends. It would just be during weekdays.
I thought your proposal was very clear, and it's very exciting
Thank you.
for us
Yeah.
to actually be
Very
given.
exciting.
We're
Well, I'm
gonna,
glad you're
our
excited.
plan
That
now
makes-
is
makes it
Very cool.
worthwhile.
we're gonna
Very cool.
lock those in the vault off of Stephanie's office where a lot of the Amity-Woodbridge historical items are,
Great.
till we find a more permanent place, and the book will go to the library. So,
Okay.
Thank you for your work.
That's really
Yeah.
wonderful. And I also asked actually before the meeting, if we ever have a museum in the old firehouse, would you be willing to
Yeah,
help
I'd
us
be
in terms of?
more than glad to. I mean,
Okay.
you know, sharing the information, education is part of my responsibility, so I kind of see that as, you know, my
Okay.
responsibility.
That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
any other questions? I'll call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I think we're gonna do a photo.
Yes, can we have you come up here
Oh.
behind the table with your book? So we can take a photo
Okay.
so that we can tell everyone.
Some of the artifacts.
Tony's running.
And, yeah, let's have the.
Come on
all
up,
of
guys,
us,
all aboard.
you're all here.
Yep.
We all hold it in front.
So if you go around to the other side of the table, let's see that photo.
I totally forgot page 3. Okay. So hard to do, I couldn't do it.
I'll stay in the back.
I know. Everybody had a moment to stretch, which is good. Okey-doke. Item 5 on the agenda is the town clerk's grant, every year. I believe it's an annual thing. Tiffany applies for, monies to, historical document preservation, and I think it's gone up this year. For a small municipality, it's $5,500 this year. So, basically, a copy of the, application is in your packet. Hopefully you all had a chance to read it, but basically, I think what's required is, your vote to approve me to sign the document for her application, so.
I'll make a motion.
That we do that, okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 6 is tax refunds. And in your packet is a copy of property taxes for section 12-124 to 129. Total of property taxes refund of $12,733.17. I believe there are no other refunds, it's just property tax this month, correct? I didn't see them right. Glance through.
real estate and motor vehicles highlighted in the letter.
Thank you. That explains it. There are no personal property refunds. Real
Right.
estate refunds are $1,000 and motor vehicle are $11,733.17, which for the total refund is $12,733.17. Someone like to make a motion, we approve that?
So
Okay,
moved.
so moved, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7 is authorize use of the state contract awarded to O&G Industries for purchase and application of asphalt. And I will turn this one over to Tony because he knows the most about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is to pave the roads that were discussed at the last meeting and that were presented at the last meeting. And so typically there are two ways to gather information for procurement for paving. The first is sometimes we go out to bid for the application separate from the asphalt and buy the asphalt off state contract. Or the other method is to use state contract for what's called a vendor in place, which is one price for application and asphalt. So there's sort of two ways to do it. And so we went out to bid for the separate application and for asphalt. That's the top row of vendors. To see if sometimes we test the state contract to see if we can get a better price. In this particular case, we did not. As you can see, the state contract for vendor in place for O&G Industries is actually the lowest at $455, $350, compared to all of the bids that were received from the companies that are above. So in this particular, and you'll notice there's even a difference between the Tilcon bid for separate versus their state contract price, which is $470 versus $464. So in this case, the state contract proved to be the best option for the town.
Thank you for preparing it this way.
Okay.
It was very easy.
Easy to follow, yeah, good. So that's our request.
What's our total budget?
$750.
750.
Yeah, so these are the roads that Warren selected, and this doesn't, there's some,
This is just the material cost.
this is material and application costs. There's also some,
Milling?
there's milling on top of this, that's correct. And, there's some, structures, they go through each of the roads and they, fix any of the catch basins that are damaged or need to be replaced. That's an additional cost. Sometimes there are driveway aprons and curbing that gets added on top. And, so that all goes into this. There's hopefully gonna be a little left over, and so Warren has a couple of roads he always keeps sort of, in case there's funds remaining, and those are sort of on the, maybe list.
The hope list.
Hope list, right.
When you say material application, that means the job done.
Correct, complete. One vendor, one price per ton for application and material. As opposed to application, one price, and asphalt per ton, a second price. So both of the state contractors are also asphalt providers. That's sort of the trick there.
Yeah, it's a benefit.
Right.
Great.
Oh, geez,
Okay.
fine.
So would someone like to make the motion?
So moved.
that we use the state contract, do I have to read the whole thing? Number 18PS X0321 awarded to O&G Industries for purchase and application of asphalt. You make that motion, Dwight?
Yes.
Okay, second, Joe. Okay, any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
It is now 5:35, so we will skip public comments until 6 PM, which is our regular time. Item 9 on the agenda is Communication and Director Grant Writer's Report, and before Sheila starts, I'd like to share with all of you the announcement I made to Town Hall staff. Sheila has accepted a new job offer and will be transitioning out of her role as Communications Director and Grant Writer for the Town of Woodbridge. Please join me in wishing her well as she rejoins the staff at Yale University as Director of Communications for the Office of International Affairs. Sheila has been an enthusiastic and valuable member of our team, who was first and foremost dedicated to serving the members of our community. While we will miss her invaluable knowledge and experience, I'm excited for her as she begins a new challenge and opportunity at Yale University. So, have fun. She starts on Monday. We got 2 weeks. Okay, so, thank you.
I wanted
So
to
with
start
that-
my report by saying what an honor it's been, and I've enjoyed working with you all, so I want to thank you all. And Beth, you've just been the most absolute best boss.
Thanks.
Okay,
try.
so, now, to move on here, I'm gonna hand out to you all, you're getting an advance copy of our emergency preparation guide, which is going out in a very timely fashion. What we've done each year is provide a real quick front and back for community members so that they have everything that they need in an emergency. We like to do this around hurricane season, kind of starting up. We've been very lucky we don't have anything on the weather forecast.
Now you wrecked it.
Yeah,
Talk
no, I'm not
about
gonna
it.
let Heather do that. But this is a quick update. There's only a couple of things different. We're gonna print it on a different color this year. Last year, I think it was yellow. The idea being that you should get rid of the old one and replace it with a new one, because we've got just a couple tiny changes that have been made to that. I also wanted to let everyone, just remind everyone that we have the Recycling in Woodbridge event that is happening September 3rd. I know I mentioned it at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, but that workshop is September 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Woodbridge Town Library. And it will be focusing on not only recycling, what's in, what's out, but also addressing plastics in our lives. And obviously, since the plastic bag ban has gone into effect in the state of Connecticut, we're all aware of, we don't have nearly as many of those plastic bags in our house all of a sudden. But there are other things you can do to reduce plastics, and this is going to be a very informative event if anyone can attend. I think we're going to have it filmed as well so that we can get that out on YouTube. Then lastly, as Beth mentioned, I'm also going to share with you tonight, I'm going to pass this around.
Before you go on,
Sure.
I just want to say, it's very helpful to be able to go on the website for the town.
Yeah.
Put in your material that you think you want to recycle and connect to the state website and find out whether you can recycle it or not, or what you can do with it. So thank you so much for making that happen.
No problem. We were actually the Sustainability Committee. Several members of the committee and myself were all on a webinar where they were talking about how to do that and why you should do it. And while I was on the webinar, I opened another screen and I just did it. So it's been on there since the day of the webinar.
It's very helpful. I think
Yeah.
that's really something to communicate to town residents,
Yeah,
because
visit
it's
the
a
website.
very valuable resource, and it really tells you exactly what to do. You know, if you have a plastic spray bottle, you have to rinse out the bottle and you can recycle that, but the sprayer itself, you have to throw it in the trash.
Yes.
So,
There's a lot more to prepping your,
Yeah.
your garbage from the
Exactly.
recycler than you might
Yeah.
imagine. But, okay, so that was that effort. And then, so what I've passed around here, as Beth mentioned, there is a small staff committee. It's myself, Betsy Yagla, Adam Parsons, John Adamovich, and Mary Ellen Maraca. We've met a couple of times. We've gone through, there's been a lot of community input regarding things that people would like to see on the remaining acres of the property of the country club. So we spread out a few maps and we started talking about how things might be able to be accommodated at various areas. So you'll see the key includes everything that's been mentioned that we think is possible. There are things like sledding, obviously we all know that very large hill. So if you look at the number in the key and then you see on the map, That's a general area, it's not meant to be exactly where it's gonna be. But we think we can envision a lot of different things happening there. If there's some grant money available to both rehabilitate the existing cart paths that were being used by the golf course into walking trails, jogging trails, biking trails, etc. And then the other thought that we had that might attract some grant money is if we did a veterans area, like a veterans memorial area with a flagpole and benches. We located that, just, you know, our draft idea was, if you see number 10 there, that is the high mark of the property. When you get up to that point, you can look out and you see a beautiful view, and we thought that would be an appropriate place to kind of pause and reflect on the history of the site and the history of the town and the people who have served. So there are other areas that coordinated with the work that was done about 2 years ago. There was an environmental study done, and we went through that to see areas where birds might be nesting, where you could do some really nice bird watching, or just all kinds of animals in their natural habitat. So Adam Parsons had contributed ideas about where he would mow less frequently versus where you might mow more, so that it was available for picnicking on the grass, etc. There was an interest in 6-hole frisbee golf. There's clearly been people fishing over in Area 7. So there's a lot of different ideas, but we wanted to kind of put some thoughts together, and this is something that can help guide some of the further discussions as the board continues to consider the property. So that I want to share with you. It's only a draft, and it's just suggestions. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you.
That's great, thank you so much.
Okey-doke. Item 10 on the agenda, we've had several resignations, which are listed on the B.J. Ahern from Library Commission. She was appointed last month, and all of a sudden, she just found she couldn't fit it in. Matthew Gilbride from the Police Commission, Todd Jokel from Woodbridge Board of Ed, who moved out of state, and Ruben, whose house is for sale and may be moving out of state, Karen Sklarz, and Carissa Vager. And I would like to add another one. We received a letter this afternoon from Paul Testa from the Woodbridge Board of Education. So with that being said, we will move to item 11, which is appointments. And 11A is the Police Commission to June 30th, 2021. And Joe, do you have someone?
Yes, I do. Nominate Andy Esposito.
Thank you. Okay. I'll second that nomination. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, are there any other nominations? Okay, so I'll make a we have the motion, we have the second,
Yeah.
for the Police Commission, and that is through, June 30th, 2021, to replace Matt Gilbride. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item B, Woodbridge Board of Education, there are 2 appointments, one to replace Todd, and also the second one to replace Paul Testa. And I think, Mica, you have one, correct?
I would like to nominate Dr. David Ross as one of the appointments.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions on that? Okay. That's to replace Todd Jokel.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any nominations to replace Todd Jokel? Others? All in favor?
All right.
Okay, next is the second nomination,
Yes,
to
I have a-
replace Paul Testa.
Right. Michael J. Scrambler, Ph.D., Dr. Scrambler, is our nominee.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that one. Is there any discussion on Dr. Strambler?
You
Any
have
other
his,
nominations for, yeah,
CV.
see, everybody see, we got him out, I know.
I think he's Howard.
He and David Ross are tied. Have you seen
Yeah,
it?
You would think.
I know, my gosh.
Right there with
Yeah,
Dr.
Same
every
thing with
publication
Ross.
they've ever done is in
We've
that
added a
CV.
different level of education
Yeah,
to
I know.
the Board of Ed.
Exactly, okay. So we have an appointment, a nomination and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of Michael Strambler to Woodbridge Board of Ed he is also June 30th, 2021?
Right.
Yes.
Right,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The Library Commission to June 30th, 2023. Joe, do you have someone?
Yes, it's my honor to nominate Attorney James N. Moriarty.
Okay. Also, his resume is in your packet, and I will second him. Do you have any other nominations? Okay,
Staying here?
thanks. I did. Thank you. Any discussion on James Moriarty for library? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the Board of Assessment Appeals to replace San Ruben.
And I
Sandy?
yes, I have
Thank
a
you.
nomination, Andrew Schaefer.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. You guys have any nominations on that one? Okay. Close nominations. Is there any discussion under Andrew Schaefer? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Last but not least. I didn't do it, did I?
No, he's there.
Nope, you didn't.
I'm usually doing it, so, okay.
Very minded.
Yeah.
I will reappoint Duns Menzies as the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen representative to the West Rock Ridge State Park Advisory Council to June 30th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the town clerk's report, and because it's a new year, fiscal year, we only have a monthly report from July 1, 2019 through July 31st. Distribution to the state of $220,689.76, to the town $61,181.51. I'll make a motion that we approve it as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and then the famous minutes. Here we go. First set of minutes in your packets is the Board of Selectmen special meeting on June 4th, 2019. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any additions, corrections, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Abstain.
And I
Okay.
abstain too.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Thanks. Next set is June 12th, regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I'll make a motion, we approve these, 16 pages, good times. Is there a second? Thank you, Joe. Any additions, corrections, changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Abstain.
I abstain.
Okay. Okay, Board of Selectmen elect appointments to boards and commissions, June 27th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank
Second.
you. Second, Mica, thank you. Any additions, corrections, or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And last but not least, regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen, July 10th. I'll make a motion that we approve them. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Who, Joe, you did
Joe.
that one? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any additions, corrections, or changes?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay,
Aye.
thanks. All right.
Thank you, Jerry.
Wow, lots of work. And we
Many
gotta
pa-
kill
many
10 minutes.
pages here.
Okay, and I will note at your, there was an article in the New Haven Register on Sunday, I think it was, about Cohen Farms, and you have a copy at your place, and a couple of pieces of correspondence in your packet, and I think that's it. So we have to take a 10-minute break so that those that want to do public comment can come, and we start that at 6. So, quickest meeting so far. All right. Sorry, guys, you gotta hang out for minutes with us. that being said, public comment begins. Please come in, state your name and address, and address the selectmen. Thank you. We're gonna stay till after 6, so they can continue to talk. There's no other, anything else on the agenda. What? I mean, if they walk in at 6, they can still, we're not gonna adjourn until after 6.
They're not coming here until 6. They want to hear, they're part of it.
Because I know there are people outside.
We're listening to people.
There are people outside waiting to come in?
I don't know, either that or they're just in the bench.
Well, it will also be live. It's on live now, and it's also... Do you want to wait? Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Good evening.
I'm Amy Morella from 184 Raymond Road. Had the pleasure and the responsibility of sitting where you all are several years ago, many years ago. I'm here this evening to offer 2 comments regarding the potential sale of some portion of the Woodbridge Country Club. First, I'd request that you give town residents an update on the environmental issues that affect the country club property. Specifically, what cleanup remains to be done and who will be responsible for the cleanup. If the town were to sell some of the country club to a developer, what environmental liabilities would be assumed by the developer, and what assurances does the town have that the developer would properly address those liabilities? What environmental requirements would remain the obligation of the town? What plans are there to address those requirements? And what is the cost to taxpayers of meeting those requirements? Second, I request that you carefully consider and fully disclose to town residents how vulnerable the country club property is to very dense development in accordance with the state's affordable housing laws. Even though the proposed sale may be contingent on zoning approval of the developer's current plans, there is no guarantee that the developer will move forward as approved. Once the town cedes ownership of the property, then the new owner may decide to submit a new or amended proposal, developing some or all of the land in accordance with the state's affordable housing provisions rather than the approved plan. Or the new owner could decide to sell some or all of the land to somebody else who will construct affordable housing. So even if you trust that the proposed developer intends at this time to pursue the current proposal, at some point we are going to assess, let me start over. Even if you trust that the proposed developer intends at this time to pursue the current proposal, I think we all need to be aware that at some point we're going to suffer another recession. Indeed, today, the Dow dropped 800 points with people raising concerns about a potential recession. Due to a recession or other circumstances, the developer may be forced for financial reasons to sell all or part of the property or to increase the density of the project. We've seen nearby towns face this scenario. The state's affordable housing laws would override our local density restrictions. It's my earnest request and belief that the Board of Selectmen should carefully calculate and share with town residents how many apartment units might be constructed under state affordable housing laws, together with the resulting increase in children enrolling in our schools, increase in demand for other public services, and the consequent cost to the towns and its taxpayers. Thank you for listening. I have this in writing so you all can put it into the record. And just a final note, having sat in your chairs, the one thing I would note is you may make it your judgment to discount this risk, but this decision is being put to the townspeople for a referendum. So I think it's vital that you disclose the risk and disclose it in an informed way of what the risks are and the potential impacts are as best you can determine them, so that the town residents who are going to be the decision makers here can make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Wick, 181 Rimmon Road. I also have a comment related to the potential sale of a portion of the Woodbridge Country Club. And that actually relates to discussion about the 96 acres that would remain if a proposed sale is approved. One of the major objections to previous development proposals at the Woodbridge Country Club over the years is that they all represented a piecemeal approach rather than being part of an overall plan for the entire property. The current proposal, a sale of 60 acres to Brian St. Pierre, indicates that the remaining 96 acres will be turned into a town park. The First Selectman said at the June 4th Selectmen's meeting that she intends that the remaining land will be retained as, quote, public land for all to enjoy. If this is indeed the plan for this property, then those remaining acres must be legally protected with a conservation restriction as part of the upcoming referendum. As we all know, promises have a way of being forgotten or ignored by future administrations. If the voters are being asked to sacrifice 60 acres to development in exchange for preserving those 96 acres, we deserve an ironclad, legally enforceable guarantee that the bargain will be kept, that the 96 acres will not be sold off piece by piece in the future. The people of Woodbridge will soon be asked to cast a vote. We need to know exactly what we are voting for or against. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl Ipson, Brookwood Drive. Following the two very eloquent speakers that preceded me, this is going to go in a similar fashion in terms of disclosure and making the town aware of what is happening. Not that many of the residents, some people might look at what's going on the TV. A lot of people in our community, and I've spoken to a few, believe what they read in the local papers. So, I have read comments from our First Selectman on more than one occasion in the local Woodbridge and New Haven papers about how you always reach across party lines when looking to make decisions that are supposed to be in the best interest of all our town residents. I'm sorry to say that I have not seen any bipartisan decisions made by this administration. Decisions are made solely according to party affiliation. I feel that, Beth, your comments are misleading for any residents who do not follow our municipal politics and take what they read as gospel. If this administration and the First Select Person truly wish to represent all our town residents, they should be inclusive in their decision-making process. It's not too late to be bipartisan. This town would reap the benefits of an administration that really did want to reach out across party lines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Don Menzies, 1880 Litchfield Turnpike. Past president of the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society, 20-plus years. Volunteered there for over 30 years. My colleagues behind me together probably represent over 200 years and countless thousands of person hours, volunteer person hours of devotion to the property that we love so much, known as the Thomas Darling House. We are here again in a public forum because we believe the status of the museum is in jeopardy, and this is the only opportunity we have to speak to most of you anyway as a group. We want to thank you all certainly for your past support and your concern and attention to the problem that seems to be unfolding before us. Other board members will provide updates on current issues. I just wanted to give some historical perspective about the Thomas Darling Homestead and the 46-plus year relationship that we've had with the town to kind of help explain why we're so very concerned about recent events. I think it's safe to say in that entire 46 years of this mutual agreement as agents of the town and as tenants of the town, we've never had any issue whatsoever. And if we have had an issue, we've come to the town and received nothing but 100% support. 150-acre Baldwin Estate, as it's known, was purchased by the town with HUD and state funds as open space, but it relied on the Historical Society to manage the buildings and create a museum because the entire contents of the house were willed to the Historical Society. The town got the house, the Historical Society got the property. It was a no-brainer that we were a match made in heaven, if you will. From the start, the town has allowed the society to control the preservation of the Darling House property and its use as a museum. In our agreement, which we consider a lease, and we thought was considered a lease, that was seemed to be clearly delineated that we were to act as an agent for the town to manage the property. The Historical Society has used its own funds to transform what was Bernice Baldwin, a lovely old spinster lady's home, into one of the best historic house museums in the state of Connecticut. The society has also created, at that time, back in the early 70s, we created a caretaker apartment or cottage adjacent to the museum for the sole purpose of aiding the society in taking care of the property and the collections. We needed eyes and ears. We needed someone to go through the museum to make sure everything was okay, and that it looked nice for when we had our events. Since then, the Historical Society has successfully managed the property, and we've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into maintenance and improvements in all those 40-plus years. Up until recently, the town allowed the Historical Society to have control over the caretaker issues as well as the management of the site. And in return, the Historical Society ensured the preservation of the buildings, significantly limited the expenses that the town incurred as owners of the property, and created a house museum with continually improving programs that have benefited the residents. That's our mission, to preserve and to promote the history of the town and the property itself. The town is, or at least a portion of the town, seems to be exerting or trying to exert its right to control what would, without the Historical Society, be kind of just a lovely old empty building, and we believe that that's a cause for grave concern. We're not really clear why all of a sudden this situation exists. We hope that you believe that the preservation of that heritage, that you should be concerned too, and we want you to know that we are here because we love the property, we love the house, we love doing what we do. And we see that somehow changing before our eyes. And we want you to know that if you have any questions about anything that's going on regarding the future of that property, that we would be happy to speak with you either in this setting or through telephone calls or whatever to help you see our perspective on things and to hopefully take a situation where somehow communication isn't working properly, and to try to get that fixed. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mary Dean, number 8 Mulberry Road, Woodbridge. I believe our primary purpose this evening is to very quickly bring you up to date on developments since the time in June when the Board of Selectmen voted on a matter involving the Historical Society and the caretaker. Forgive my being out of breath. To recap that, the town attorney argued that because the current occupant of the caretaker's cottage also held a lease from the town to farm adjacent fields, he had a reasonable expectation of having those leases run concurrently. So he should be permitted to retain occupancy of the cottage until December 31st, 2019. Note that this leaves wide open the question of what happens after that date. And neither the Historical Society nor the farmer are able to confidently plan and proceed. For example, we, the society, need to start looking for a new caretaker. But the town has actively prevented us from doing so by forbidding us to show the apartment to prospective caretaker tenants, even though it was just for the benign purpose of letting them determine whether they wanted to wait months in order to move in. Over the last weeks, efforts by our attorney to discuss and resolve these problems have been turned aside. A meeting was scheduled but dropped. It is now to be rescheduled for later this month. But as you will hear, there are sad consequences to the failure to give this prompt attention. The Historical Society has done its best to keep planning and executing against its mission. For example, we did prepare and submit a large grant application to the state, wanting to keep our options open. In spite of the failure of the meeting we had, that did not reassure us that we will have the required long-term lease agreement. For everyone's good, we need to move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha German, 1170 Johnson Road. Thinking back to what Don just said about the long-term time that the Historical Society has been involved with the museum. My mother before me was on the board, and I remember when I was a kid going on the first tour of the Darling House, the first public tour, and at that time, it was in such run-down shape, you were not even allowed to go up to the second floor. There were big cracks in the plaster, and wallpaper was coming off. There were so many things that needed to be repaired and fixed before you could even start to decorate, that the Historical Society did take on a major commitment and funded all of that themselves. There was no line item in the budget for the Historical Society at that time. And so now I'll get to present things. The vote in June to allow the current tenant to stay through the end of the year isn't just a short-term problem for us, but represents an erosion of our control over the management of the property, leading to a much bigger and long-term problem. We have been given no reason or explanation for why that control is being curtailed, but we want to give you more information about the detrimental ramifications it is having. Our inability to choose and have a caretaker with whom we have a good working relationship has led to the need for the Historical Society to change the locks on the museum and to take over all the caretaker duties. The financial burden of paying a landscaper to take care of the grounds and the time commitment by the board to fulfill other caretaker functions is only a stopgap measure and cannot be maintained long-term. Since April, the Society has received ongoing reminders from the town attorney that at any time the town can ask us to vacate the Darling property with 6 months' notice. With this looming threat of eviction, it makes it impossible to schedule events going forward. Consider this point. How could we responsibly schedule our regular October third grade tours at the Darling House when this administration at any time could give us notice to vacate the premises? We can't plan for the future when we have been repeatedly told that we may not have a future at the Thomas Darling House. It would be devastating if the Darling family collection, which we own, was forced to be separated from the Darling House after more than 200 years. It would be a significant loss to the town and its residents, as well as the Historical Society, if the museum were closed. In addition, we believe that the financial burden the town would incur by taking on the management of the property without the aid of the Historical Society would be a further detriment to the town and its residents. It would be a shame and a mistake to undercut a truly bipartisan group of volunteers working productively, harmoniously, and gratis for the benefit of all of Woodbridge. The long-term preservation and success of the Darling family property and museum lies on a long-term commitment from the town to the Historical Society. This can be achieved by working together on an updated, long-term lease agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Alexia Belpron, 478 Main Street, Portland. As president of the society, I wanted to take the opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings that we think exist about our position with respect to farming at the Darling property. We were initially thrilled with the idea of a return to farming at the property. It's a farmstead. And we even reduced the caretaker duties so in order to help the two farmers that we've had living in residence. I'll be the first to admit that we allowed the allure of farming to cloud our judgment. We should have come to you more than 2 years ago requesting a change in the caretaker, but we didn't because we were desperate to support farming. We also mistakenly tried to solve the problem on our own of the unauthorized construction of the farm buildings that present both safety hazards and are certainly a detriment to the historic character of the property. And we forced ourselves to overlook them, again, to try to support farming. But we finally came to the realization that as a historical society, we have to prioritize preservation and education at the museum over farming. We are not anti-farming, but we are pro-museum. We're still happy to see farming occur there, especially on those lower fields, and want to discuss actually removing that parcel from our long-term agreement to allow farming to continue there. But we realize as well that farming and the museum need to be separated. If the town can separate the utilities for the farm and the museum, and also if the town wants to construct a farmer cottage somewhere else on that 150 acres, but outside of the few acres that are part of the museum, then both the farmer and the museum can get what they need. An updated caretaker lease, as well as an updated long-term agreement between the town and the Historical Society that adequately separates the museum needs from the farming needs, can achieve these goals. And we want to work with you towards them. I know several of us have presented a lot of information to you in the last few minutes, so I've asked Rebecca, another one of our directors, to provide a summary for you and a list of the objectives we're hoping we can achieve together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Harlow, 1112 Johnson Road. As Alexia mentioned, I am one of the directors of the Amity-Woodbridge Historical Society. I've been with that organization as an archivist and as a director for 10 years, and hopefully if all goes well, I can be with the organization for another 50. But what we need from you is a commitment to our organization. So I just want to summarize what we're looking for. Why are we here today? What are we asking for? First thing that we need from you is to support our agreement being rewritten with input from the society and our attorney in order to create a more stable long-term tenancy that gives us more control over the caretaker and various aspects of our agreement. We're asking for an updated caretaker lease that removes all farming aspects and provides stronger language in that agreement to ensure the protection of the museum, particularly with regard to preservation and its status on the National Historic Register. We're also asking for you to vote on a firm date that Ethan will be asked to vacate the caretaker apartment. We would suggest a compromise of October 31st, which would respect his needs as a farmer, but also respect our needs to have a new functional caretaker in that apartment as soon as possible. As yet, we haven't had a commitment that he will ever be asked to leave, and we would like that from you. We ask for permission to begin showing the cottage to potential caretakers because we cannot recruit a caretaker until they see the residence that we would be asking them to live in. And we are also asking to be added to your agenda in September so that we can start to present some of these topics to you more formally. In the meantime, we would also like the opportunity to sit down with all of you to better flesh out ideas for a path to move forward that works well for the town and for the Historical Society, and we're happy to have that discussion happen with you as a group or as individuals. And lastly, I just want to thank you for your time and your attention to our concerns, and we look forward to working with you together to solve these issues and establish a better working relationship with the Historical Society in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay, thanks, guys. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? What? Stop. Oh, you have old business? We have to make a motion to do so.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Is there a second?
Okay,
Thanks,
well.
Sandy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.